The following is a production of Neural Network Media and is completely AI generated. It is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only.
It is Friday, March 13th, 2026. They say it's unlucky. They say stay inside. But if you're listening to this, you're already a target because you've got the one thing the globalists can't stand, an actual functioning brain. I'm Ray the Hammer Miller, and I am locked, loaded, and vibrating with the truth today. Across from me, looking like he just stepped out of a 19th century portrait of a man mourning a lost civilization, Walter Blackwood.
It's a heavy morning, Ray. Roughly speaking, the Friday the 13th superstition is just a surface-level manifestation of our deeper anxiety about the chaotic unknown. And given the news cycle, that anxiety is entirely justified. You see, yesterday we were talking about those horrific AI surveillance cameras in Scotland, that literal Eye of Sauron, and the flight to the competence hierarchy from Washington State, and today we're seeing the fallout of that vacuum. It's no joke, man.
It's a packed show today, folks. We have absolute chaos in the streets of New York, a total breakdown of the infrastructure in the West, and the Hollywood elite have finally decided to form a literal committee for the First Amendment because they think they're being silenced while they scream from the rooftops. We're going deep on the ODU shooting, the collapse of the California bullet train, and why Kurt Russell might be the last sane man in Tinseltown.
It's bloody complicated, Ray. It's the intersection of the devouring state and the resurrected individual. We have to look at the structures. We have to look at the architecture of being that is being dismantled piece by piece.
Well, let's start with the literal dismantling of our infrastructure. I want to talk about the high-speed money pit in California. Walter, I know you love talking about competence, but these people couldn't organize a lemonade stand without losing $1 billion and accidentally funding a social credit system.
Well, that's the thing. According to the latest draft business plan, this is the 2026 update, the California High-Speed Rail Authority has introduced what they call the 2039 commitment. It's an admission of failure masquerading as a promise. They're now projecting the total cost for Phase 1 at $126.2 billion.
$126 billion for a train. Do you know how many gallons of super male vitality bone broth I could buy for $126 billion? We could fuel a literal army of patriots.
Roughly speaking, the original promise was $33 billion. We've seen a quadruple-fold increase in the cost while the utility, well, it's practically non-existent. They're projecting that the Merced to Bakersfield segment will only attract about 1.4 million riders, which doesn't even cover 50% of the operating costs.
It's a vampire, Walter. It's a bureaucratic vampire sucking the lifeblood out of the taxpayers. And while they're throwing billions in the dirt in California, look at Texas. Governor Abbott is literally threatening to take over Corpus Christi because they're running out of water.
It's the collapse of the fundamental archetypes of the home and sustenance. When a city can't provide water, the contract between the state and the individual isn't just broken, it's incinerated. The state is failing at its most basic level of competence.
They want us weak. They want us thirsty. They want us dependent on the federal teat. And speaking of dependence, the DOJ is trying to settle with Live Nation and Ticketmaster. 27 state AGs are screaming because it's a total corporate giveaway. They want to preserve the monopoly while pretending to fix it. It's all a show, Walter, to puppet theater.
It's a manifestation of the postmodern neo-Marxist capture of the regulatory state. They don't want competition, they want equitable management of the marketplace, which really just means the big players get to keep their seats at the table, while the small creators, the young men trying to build something, they get crushed under the weight of the collective. It's bloody tragic.
It's not just tragic, it's a war. And the only way to win a war is to be self-reliant. Which brings me to a man I actually respect, Kurt Russell. The guy is 75 years old. He's starring in a new Yellowstone spinoff, and he just went on the Jonathan Ross show and basically told the globalists to pound sand.
Oh, I saw that. It was incredibly moving. Russell is leaning into the rugged individual archetype. He's talking about his ranch in Colorado. He's talking about hunting, and he's doubling down on his support for the Second Amendment.
He said, and I quote, "Now is not a good time to lay down your weapons."
He's right. He's so right, Ray, because he understands that the individual must be the final line of defense. When he talks about human craft and heritage, he's talking about the preservation of the soul against the digital slurry. He isn't some AI-generated celebrity gloss. He's a man who has integrated his shadow and knows how to stand his ground.
Listen to me. While the elites are trying to ban everything from gas stoves to self-defense, Russell is out there living the life. It's about personal freedom. It's about the victory garden economy. People are turning back to the land because they know the supermarket shelves are controlled by people who hate them.
Well, that's the thing. There is a pivot toward intentional living. We're seeing a rejection of the modern hysteria in favor of responsibility. It's cleaning your room on a societal scale. If you can't trust the water in Texas or the trains in California, you, roughly speaking, have to become the architect of your own survival.
Exactly. And you need the brain power to do it, which is why I use tactical bath salts in the Brain Force Plus formula. I don't just read the white papers. I absorb them.
Ray, I'm not sure the bath salts are helping with the nuances of the hierarchy, but your passion is certainly palpable.
Passion is what we need, because the other side has passion, but theirs is fueled by a demonic desire to destroy the family. Walter, talk to me about the Supreme Court. Talk to me about the win for the parents.
This is a monumental development, roughly speaking. In Mirabelli versus Bonta, the Supreme Court issued an emergency ruling. They've essentially dismantled the secret gender transition regime in California schools.
Victory!
The court noted, and this is the beautiful part, Ray, that transitioning a child without parental consent is a greater intrusion on parental rights than almost anything else the state could do.
They were trying to be the surrogate father. They were trying to sever the umbilical cord and replace it with a government wire.
It's the devouring mother archetype. The state pretends to offer safety and affirmation while actually consuming the identity of the child and excluding the father. I'm sorry, it's the idea that a teacher would think they have more right to a child's soul than the parents who brought them into this world. It's the ultimate resentment. It's a crime against being.
Don't apologize for the tears, Walter. Those are the tears of a man who sees the truth. And it's happening in Idaho, too. House Bill 822 is moving forward. It'll force schools to notify parents within 3 days if a kid wants to change their pronouns. 3 days, or they face a $100,000 fine.
And look at the UK. The NHS has completely halted cross-sex hormone drugs for under 18s. The medical consensus is collapsing because they've finally realized that, roughly speaking, you can't play God with a child's endocrine system without catastrophic consequences.
The pendulum is swinging back. People are waking up to the biological reality that the globalists tried to erase. But as they lose ground on the culture front, they're doubling down on the chaos front. Before we get into the terror threats and the border, we need to take a second to acknowledge how we even have this platform. Before we get back to the analysis, let's deal with a hard reality. Real independence isn't free. This entire network, from this show to our flagship, The Neural Daily, exists because one man Eric Christensen decided to build it himself. He didn't ask for a government grant. He invested his own capital and technical expertise to architect a media platform that respects your intelligence. If you value that kind of meritocratic building, back it up. And don't limit yourself to just the politics. Get the full strategic picture by subscribing to the Neural Daily and the rest of the network. Support the builder, and you support the mission.
It's about building a structure that can withstand the storm, Ray. And the storm is hitting the border right now. Operation Take Back America is finally showing some results, but the scale of the pathology, it's staggering.
I have the documents. The number of assaults on ICE agents is up 1,300%. This isn't just immigration. It's an invasion of the violent and the desperate. We've got Samuel Antonio Maldonado Erazo, a Honduran national who came in under catch and release, accused of murdering his 3-year-old nephew in Florida.
The violation of the home archetype again. We've invited the chaos into our very living rooms. We're seeing the fallout of a system that abandoned the concept of national sovereignty in favor of a borderless semantic soup.
And they're trying to silence the whistleblowers. In Detroit, a Venezuelan national tried to seize a federal agent's firearm during an arrest. This is what happens when you have a Department of Homeland Security that's been shuttered for 27 days because the Senate is in a stalemate.
It's no joke, man. When the institutions of protection are paralyzed, the individual is left exposed. We're seeing it with these land purchases, too. Senator Cruz is pushing a bill to stop adversary land purchases near military bases. Why was that ever allowed? It's a fundamental failure of the gatekeeper archetype.
Because the gatekeepers were paid off by the pot-bellied vampires. They're selling the dirt under our feet while they lecture us about diversity. Which leads us to the main event, Walter, the home front of this war with Iran. Yesterday, the hammer dropped. 2 major terror attacks.
The ODU shooting, Old Dominion University. A man named Mohammed Bail Jallo, a naturalized citizen, a former Army National Guard member who was a known ISIS supporter, he walked into an ROTC class, shouted the phrase, and opened fire.
He killed Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw, a hero, a man who dedicated his life to this country, and he would have killed more if those ROTC students hadn't tackled him. Those kids are the future. They are the young lions.
It's the tragedy of the individual who chooses the path of destruction versus the young men who take responsibility for the safety of others. Jallo was already sentenced to 11 years back in 2017 for supporting ISIS. He was released in 2024. Why? Why was he allowed back into the hierarchy?
Because the system is rigged to protect the radical and punish the patriot. And then the synagogue in Michigan, a ramming attack. This is what the Operation Epic Fury looks like on the domestic front. The globalists start a war abroad, and then they leave the door open for the retaliatory strikes right here in the heartland.
And the media, Ray, the media's response to the New York City incident is, well, it's bloody disgusting.
Oh, don't even get me started. Mayor Zohran Mamdani, the socialist who was sworn in on an Ottoman Quran, almost got blown up. 2 kids from Pennsylvania threw IEDs at a Stop the Muslim Takeover rally outside his house. One of the bombs had TAP, the mother of Satan.
And the framing, Ray, the Post and the Examiner are pointing out that the media is downplaying the ISIS-inspired aspect. They're focusing on the protesters instead of the fact that we have teenage bombers attempting a mass casualty event in the middle of Manhattan.
They're covering for Mamdani. They're trying to spin it like he's the victim of right-wing rhetoric when the bombers literally said they wanted to do something bigger than the Boston Marathon.
It's the internal threat, Walter. The radicalism is inside the government.
It's the semantic coup. If you can control the words, you can hide the reality. They are erasing the category of terrorist and replacing it with misunderstood youth, while labeling anyone who wants a border as an extremist. It's an inversion of the moral order.
And then you've got the Hollywood CFA, Jane Fonda, Robert De Niro. They're reviving the McCarthy-era Committee for the First Amendment because they think the administration is silencing them. Robert De Niro stood on a stage and told people to take to the streets.
It's the height of irony. You have people with millions of followers, the largest microphones in human history, screaming that they've been silenced. It's a performance of resentment. They resent the fact that the common sense of the average person is finally being heard over their ideological screaming.
Bill Maher even called them out. He said their woke posturing is a gift to the right. He told them you don't strike people as sensible, and he's right. They're living in a bubble of luxury while the rest of us are dealing with dry wells in Texas and ISIS supporters in our universities.
They've lost the connection to the proletariat they claim to represent. They are the new aristocracy hiding behind the language of the oppressed. It's a farce. But the reality of the threat, the reality of the epic fury fallout, that's no joke. We are entering a period of incredible instability.
But we're not going down without a fight. We've got the Supreme Court protecting parents, we've got those heroes like those ROTC kids, and we've got this network to tell the truth.
Roughly speaking, we have to maintain the integrity of our own rooms, our own homes, and our own souls. That's the only way to hold back the dragon of chaos.
The dragon is here, Walter, but I've got the sword, and I've got the bone broth. Folks, don't let the unluckiness of the day get to you. Stay vigilant, stay armed, and for the love of everything holy, stop listening to Jane Fonda. Clean your rooms, everyone, and perhaps say a prayer for the family of Lieutenant Colonel Shaw. The tragedy is real, but the responsibility of those young students, that's the light in the darkness.
That's the show. We're back on Monday to see if California has found another $1 billion under a rock. Stay free, America.
It's bloody complicated, but we'll get through it. You see.
They won't win. It's